Instructor Yasir here, checking in. I wanted to build on something real quick dealing with the martial arts, self-defense, and street fights, street level training. A couple days ago, I was speaking with one of my guys, one of my longtime buddies, who's also a martial artist, Wing Chun, for a long time, over 10 years at this point. And we were talking about, training and, sparring and training for the street and all these different types of things. So he was telling me about how, he goes to this karate school where they allow you to come in and spar. It doesn't matter what system you are, but you're able to come in and spar. So it's a whole host of karate black belts that's there. And then other people from different systems, around the area come in and spar. And, one of the, and, they spar with gear and, do the whole thing. And also this karate school is known for being like a really good tournament school. Like, they go to karate tournaments and they clean house. He's got several. The teacher for the school, he's legendary on the Chicago karate scene. And he has multiple students, that have went on to become champions. So my guy goes up there and spars, every once in a while. He's been doing that for years. He goes on and off, maybe take a few months off, whatever. Me and him were talking, about that type of training. And we were questioning, how much of it. And so I asked him, I said, how much do you think that, doing that type of training is really training you for the real thing? Because I was watching a documentary a couple weeks ago, on Dr. Moses Powell, founder of sanuces jujitsu. And it's an old documentary. And he's talking about how he says, man, I got my students, they're always saying, Doc, why don't you let us go out there and win some tournaments for you, bring some trophies back, that you can post up in the school. And Doc, never was interested in competition. He never trained competition. He never wanted his students to go to competitions because he didn't believe in it. He didn't believe that it was he felt like competition would take your mindset out of the real thing, the real thing being the street. So Doc wasn't for competitions. He had some students that did compete just because that's what they wanted to do, but that wasn't something that Doc, put out there. And so that made me think, about that, about like sparring, competition, traditional martial arts, and the whole battle that goes on in the martial arts community. You know how it is. You have a lot of MMA guys that feel like what they do is superior, or it's like real street level over traditional martial artists because they go in the octagon and they compete on a regular basis. You got a lot of guys on YouTube that say they have created some new system or whatever, who, say that their stuff is really for the street or street level and that type of thing. In my experience, there's definitely some aspects of the martial arts that are more for, culture, health, the art, side of it, discipline, strength building, fitness, that sort of thing. And then there's definitely other techniques that are more direct, street level type of techniques. So depending on what system you study, this is a nice shade area. I think I'm gonna take a seat. So depending, oh, I got some sun there. So depending on, what system you study, You might have got access to that and you might not have. It's very important that you get that type of real training. But when it comes to the sparring is necessary. Don't get me wrong. Sparring is necessary because you have to, you know, practice throwing your techniques and having techniques thrown at you. You know, you have to be hit. You got to hit other people, you know, in order to just know what that's like. If you're not getting that training, when the real thing happens in the street, you're not going to be prepared, you know. So you have to have that. But I just kind of wanted to bring to light that even when you spar and even when you go in the octagon, that's not the real thing. You know what I mean? That's still not the real thing, the real street thing. If you've ever been in a street fight before, or if you've watched street fights, you know that one thing about street fights is that they're unpredictable. They're unpredictable. You don't know what that person knows. You don't know what that person doesn't know. You don't know what that person has. You don't know if that person got other people with them waiting to jump in. You don't know any of these things. So these are things that you don't deal with when you're training in a controlled environment, like a sparring or a professional, you know, MMA or a boxing fight. So all those things need to be considered. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, nothing's like the real thing but the real thing is what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? There's no way to fully replicate a real life or death, self-defense, street level fight without it being that type of fight. You understand? Like, it's just like police officers, you know, or the military. You know what I mean? They train for the real life. They train the skills over and over and over again, so that they can become second nature. But they train the skills over and over and over again in a controlled environment, so that nobody gets hurt, or to, you know, to try to preserve, you know, the body. But they train those skills over and over again, trying to get ready for the real thing, but it's not the real thing. You know, when the real thing happens, it's different. You got adrenaline pumping, you know, fear can start to creep in, and all these different things. And then your years of training is tested, you know. And also too, you know, don't go out there thinking that, you know, you Superman out here. No matter how many years of training you've had, no matter how successful you may have been in street fights in the past, every day is a new day, and anybody can be caught. You hear me? Anybody can be caught. Anybody can be caught slipping. All it takes is for you to miss a technique and the other person to connect with theirs, and then everything's different. You know what I mean? You know, you so good throwing that jab or that hook, or, you know, you throwing that roundhouse, you know, or that cut kick, you know, to their thigh, or, you know, you trying to catch that knee. But what if you miss? You know what I mean? What if you miss? It happens. It happens. What if you miss? What if your timing was off? You know what I mean? The environment is different. It could be loud. It could be people around. It could be cars driving by. It could be, you could have just been tired that day. You know, whatever, anything. What if you miss, but that other person don't miss? Okay? Whole nother game, you know? So don't get it confused out here. You know what I'm saying? Train diligently, train hard. Keep the focus on real life. You know what I mean? I think that's important, you know. Keep the focus on real life, you know. Train the body up. Train the body up. You know, that iron body. In my experience thus far, in my background, Southern Praying Mantis Kung Fu has been, you know, by far the best thing I've seen in terms of that iron body, building that body up for dishing out and taking punishment. We do a lot of conditioning exercises in that system. You know, a lot of punching on, you know, rocks and, you know, mung beans, and rolling your forearms on steel pipes and all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Building your forearms up for contact and all of that. All that stuff is important, you know, when it comes to real life street level, you know, real life, you know, engaging, you know, as my seafood likes to call it, pugging, you know. He's an old school guy, so he calls it pugging, you know. So all that's important, man. So, you know, just, you know, keep the right mindset, you know what I mean? Think like Doc, you know. Doc wasn't on those tournaments and things like that because he knows that wasn't the real thing. If you want to do that, if you want to compete, that's great, have fun, you know, but just keep it in its proper context, you know what I mean? It's competition, you know, you're not really going out there, even though people get hurt. Anytime you're doing any type of fighting on any level, there's a possibility to get hurt. I've been hurt, you know, and I've hurt other people. So that happens, you know, all the time, but it's still not a situation where you really trying to take this other person out and that other person is really trying to take you out, you know, on that real level. But in the street, that's how it could be, you know, somebody really trying to take you out. So you got to be able to level up, you know, you got to be able to level up, take it to the next level and give them everything that they want. These flies out here is crazy. So, you know, keep training, keep working out, train daily, you know what I mean? Get something in daily, and watch your back. Us?